through the winter's ice and cold, down Nicollet Avenue. A city of flame fought fire and ice neath an occupier's boots. King Trump's private army from the DHS, guns belted to their coats, came to Minneapolis to enforce the law, or so their story goes. Against smoke and...
Good evening. I'm Catharine Richert, and you're listening to NPR News. That song you're hearing is Streets of Minneapolis by Bruce Springsteen. He wrote it in the hours after Alex Preddy was fatally shot by Border Control agents last month, and just weeks after Renee Macklin Good was fatally shot by an ICE agent in South Minneapolis. Just days later, Springsteen played the song live during a benefit concert at First Ave, organized by Rage Against the Machine's Tom Morello. The concert and the music reflected a historical moment for the state. Now, months into the Trump administration's immigration crackdown here, musicians are writing the soundtrack of Minnesota's response to ICE enforcement. And the songs aren't just coming from music legends like Springsteen. From local street choirs and drummers to new tracks by Twin Cities musicians Laamar and Jeremy Messer-Smith, a new wave of protest music is rising in response to ICE operations. So tonight we'll talk with two Minnesotans who are curating and writing this music about the inspiration behind these songs and the legacy of protest music. But before we get to our show, I want to tell you about our member drive right now. You may have noticed we're taking a different approach this time. Programming will not be interrupted to fundraise, and instead, this newsroom is focused on keeping you connected while the news changes rapidly every single day. We are committed to keeping Minnesotans informed, and your support is more important now than ever. So please start or increase your sustaining donation today. Give now at nprnews.org or 800-227-2811. Now I want to bring in our guests. We have Gannon Hanevold. He is a DJ at our sister station, The Current, and you can hear him on the air every Saturday and Sunday from 3 to 7 p.m. Gannon, thank you for coming downstairs to the newsroom tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being around you guys.
Yeah, definitely. We also have Joffrey Lamar Wilson, who performs under the name Laamar. He is a musician that was raised in North Minneapolis. His work includes the album In the Light and the EP Flowers, and he wrote a song called Who Is She to You in response to the fatal shooting of Renee Macklin Good by an ICE agent last month. Thank you so much for being here, Joffrey.
Thanks. Honored to be here.
Okay, so we want our audience to join our conversation as we always do. Our question for you tonight is, what song, new or old, has become part of how you're processing what's happening right now? Or maybe you are a musician or someone who just plays an instrument. We're wondering how music is helping you understand this moment. Give us a call at 651-227-6000 or 800-242-2828. So, Joffrey, I want to start our program with the song you wrote, Who Is She to You, that was in response to the fatal shooting of Renee Macklin Good. Let's give it a listen.
Every day I wake up trying to be better than the day before. Every day I wake up just trying to show up for someone next door. Every day you wake up trying to be braver than the day before. Every day you wake up just trying to show up and come home through your door. But what's it mean to you? What you paid to do? You hide behind a mask for a pocket full of cash. What's it mean to you? What you paid to do? You're putting on a suit, but who is she to you? What's it mean to you? what you paid to do. You hide behind a mask for a pocket full of cash. And what's it mean to you?
Joffrey, I love the piano on this as someone who grew up playing it myself. And I'm wondering how this song came together. What were you thinking? What was in your mind at that moment?
Yeah. I described it recently to someone else, sort of my experience that day. And like many people, sort of following along a bit to social media as news was being reported. And just having this sort of sinking feeling in my body that, the day was going to become progressively more tragic. And like I, was having an emotional response, I think, like many people. And I think, as it is for many songwriters, sort of was seeking music as a way to sort of explore and process what I was feeling. And so I headed home early from work and had fortunately a couple hours at home by myself, and decided to sit at the piano and just, without any real intention to write music, but to just sort of be in some music and be in that headspace. But again, I think like many songwriters, songs find you when they need to. And I just started playing my piano, which I had recently had tuned, and so I think I was just feeling the connection to the piano in that moment. And just sat down and started playing, and lyrics and concepts started coming, and I was sort of learning about Renee as the news was unfolding. And so the process of writing the song was also sort of a process of learning more about her and learning more about the tragedy at the same time. And honestly, sitting at my piano and shedding some tears as I sort of, came to understood that, we were at an inflection point in the city, and the city wouldn't be the same moving forward. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Joffrey, I read the caption of the social media post you did of the song initially, and you wrote that you didn't even know Renee's name at the time, and I was really taken by the fact that it felt like you had to write that song right at that moment. And I'm just wondering, is it usually that immediate for you that a song comes to you, or is it more of a process typically?
It's usually fairly. I was describing recently something that I hear musicians talk about, which is that oftentimes songs are sort of in your head or in your body, and at least for me, like I can be sort of the vessel of a song that's sort of already existing, and what I need to do is sit down at the instrument and sort of unearth the song. And often that's just sort of playing through the chords over and over again, and like working on lyrical sounds and like working on word sounds even, and thinking about, what am I trying to emote through the lyrics and the melody. But this was certainly a song that, I wrote most of it in under an hour, just sort of sat down and let the words come out. Not that they're always that easy, but I think often songs that are like speaking to a moment can sort of, have that immediacy to them. And then
and it's cathartic for you too, right? I mean, there's a catharsis there. There's
very much so.
I want to bring in a guest that we weren't sure we were going to have right away, so we didn't promote her. But Shruti Rajasekar is a composer, vocalist, and the 2025 McKnight Fellow with the American Composers Forum. Shruti, I'm so glad you're with us. I understand you came directly from the airport, so we're really happy to have you in studio. You also wrote a song shortly after Renee Good was killed. Can you tell me what you were thinking at the time that you wrote your song?
Yes, and thank you so much for having me. I felt really numb, almost like I was in a fog for about 72 hours after Renee Good was killed. And I think a lot of Minnesotans can relate to this. There were bursts of anger and fear amidst that. But really, it was like something had descended on me. And actually, at the time, I keep a pretty busy composing schedule. So I had a couple of projects I was supposed to be working on. But I really didn't feel up to anything. I think it's fair to say that, it's like Minnesota was kind of in a collective depression in that moment, the way that nothing felt right. Even eating, sleeping, everything felt hard. Sleeping was hard, being awake was hard. And in this space, I think something cracked for me on the Saturday after that, where I just desperately wanted to be singing with my friends. But part of the fear and part of the psychological tools that are being used against us in this moment is that we're made to feel like we should be isolated and we shouldn't be with people. So I was finding it hard to reach out to people and say, I need help. It was more like, just we check in, how are you? Not good. How are you? Not good. That was kind of the sequence. And so I think for me specifically, it was this need to be singing with people, even if I was physically isolated. Yeah. So I actually wrote the song in about 10 minutes, and I sent a voice memo over to my friend, who is a wonderful filmmaker and lyricist, Zach Stodds. And I asked Zach, I just want some feedback on this. I don't write lyrics all the time, just sometimes. And to my surprise, they sent back a recording singing the song back to me. And that is when I think like something started, like the ice that had frozen over me had started to crack a little bit, and things felt like they could flow again.
Well, Shruti, I want to hear some of this, and
Sure.
I think our audience does too. So why don't we go ahead and play a clip of Feeling Slightly Better singing with you.
Hard to be awake and hard to keep the faith, but feeling slightly better singing with you. Feeling kind of numb as fire burns the world, but a step towards rebuilding is singing with you. Watching fear and violence, watching voices silenced, giving thanks to still be singing with you. Fill the streets with music, make our voices louder. There is joy and power in singing with you. So I stay awake and try to keep the faith, 'cause I'm feeling slightly better singing with you. Feeling slightly better singing with you. Feeling slightly.
Thank you so much, Shruti, for sharing that with us. It's beautiful. Gannon, I want to hear more about how The Current has been sort of curating this moment for your audience. You're certainly highlighting some of these songs, but how are you framing them and how are you talking about them on the air? And what are you playing? What stands out to you?
Well, I think the best thing we can do in this moment is be sincere. I think that's the biggest thing is like you mentioned, Joffrey, like the feeling on the day that news came in, just sort of the chaos of that moment and that fog that you brought up, just that sort of hung over. I didn't want to ignore that when I'm on the air, especially in curating music. I don't want to come on the air and just ignore the tension of that moment. So I think it's been important to sort of like meet the energy of Minnesota in a way. And I think music has been a great way to do that. Whether it's through older songs, I think Give Peace a Chance by John Lennon might have been one of the first tracks I played after going on the air, after all of this came in. I'm on the weekend, so if I remember right, the shooting, the Renee Good shooting was on a Thursday, and I think I was on Saturday. I just remember those couple of days just being in that fog, and then that was one of the first songs I played, and it felt appropriate, this idea of give peace a chance, the hope in it, and then, of course, all these new songs start pouring in. Joffrey, you shared yours shortly after the shooting on social media. And as these songs came in, we were able to work them into sort of the regular rotation of tracks you hear on The Current. So lately we've been enjoying that track from you, and then Dury, local band, with sort of the other side of that coin, sort of the anger and catharsis that we're also sort of feeling in this moment. And I think that's the authenticity of it, is meeting every side of the emotional spectrum, because we're all feeling it all right now.
Yeah. And Gannon, you mentioned Give Peace a Chance by John Lennon. And I was thinking today about how many protest songs or songs about current events just like really stick with us culturally, like Mississippi Goddamn by Nina Simone or Ohio by Crosby, Stills and Nash. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, like, as someone who marinates in music all the time, what is the legacy of these songs? Because they sort of become part of the historical record, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing, I am of the belief that all art is political. I think being apolitical on your music is in itself a political statement. And so I think what's interesting is in these moments that like the one we're in right now here in Minnesota and across the country, what strikes me is that to me the quantity of protest music perhaps doesn't change, but the demand for it does. I think there's a yearning to revisit and sort of reclaim some of these older songs that have aged well, unfortunately well at times, in how we're feeling. And so Give Peace a Chance being one of those tracks, like, I think you go through, I mean, I've been sitting with a lot of John Prine music lately. Like that's been something that's scratching an itch for me. You know, talking about a revolution, the revolution will not be televised. Gil Scott-Heron, absolute classic. Like I think all of these songs, I mean, Rise Against was here for that show you mentioned earlier with the Springsteen thing. They have a great track called Prayer of the Refugee, which I remember playing on Guitar Hero as a kid and like not thinking too hard about it and just being like, oh, this is a cool guitar riff. And then just like really sitting with the words on that song and looking at the world around me. I think that is the great thing about protest music is it sort of earns a new life as the situation changes, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, Joffrey, I'm wondering, like, how do you consider your role as a musician in these moments? And I just want to point out, too, that your EP Flowers really does address other instances of racial injustice, Philando Castile, George Floyd. How do you see yourself and the art you make fitting into this historical narrative?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as Gannon said, art is political, and I think the role of the artist is to speak to what you're seeing and what you're experiencing and give that a voice. Certainly that's sort of what I've tackled in my approach to making music. And I think it's a responsibility and a privilege we have to do that. And so my sort of creative process has often been that of observing what's happening around me and speaking to that, and trying to do it in a way that is authentically creative and also able to resonate with people. And I think a lot about, who is my audience and who am I able to impact with the words that I have to say and the experiences and stories that I get to share. But it's complicated. I think writing these songs that we've written recently when things are so raw is really a test, at least for me, has really been a test of sort of the fortitude of speaking to those things as we're living them and sort of pushing on the pain as it's happening and being sort of the vessel to provide a soundtrack, not in a sort of flippant way, but like a soundtrack for people to sort of process what they're feeling. And in the moment, it can be a painful thing to do, but also one with, great honor to be able to do that.
Yeah. We're going to get to some calls here in just a minute, but Shruti, I'm really curious to know, I can hear you and see you sort of nodding emphatically. I mean, how do you see the role of someone like yourself in moments like these?
I think with this piece specifically, it feels so important to me to be a connector in a way. So one of the things I did immediately was to create like score for those ensembles that use Western notation, lyric sheet, and basically a bunch of material. Someone wrote to me asking for ukulele chords so they could use it. And this piece is, from what I've heard so far from folks, like a congregation in Maryland sang it, a group in Ireland sang it. I didn't reach out to these people, but they found it. They found the free materials to download. And what I'm hearing from especially folks outside of Minnesota is that it gives them a chance to talk about it in their communities. And that feels
so interesting. Your song is being sung by other groups.
Yeah,
and this is how they're sort of understanding what's happening here. Oh, that's fascinating.
And the best part is they're making it their own. So somebody at the University of Warwick in UK, Susie Van Gogh and Chris Mapp made a mashup with, we talked about Gil Scott-Heron, Scott-Heron's Winter in America, 1974 track, which is very prophetic for this moment if you look at the lyrics of that. So they used the chords of that and made a new version. And some other folks have added their own verses. People are making it their own. They're singing it in neighborhood circles that people have been gathering in after Alex Preti was murdered. People were gathering on street corners, and I heard from a few friends they were singing it there as well, too. So I see it as like I really just see it as my role as the conduit here and just like almost like let the song pass through me and pass into others' hands, and they make it their own, and they make it for their community and for this healing.
Yeah. Well, we've had Megan from Minneapolis on the line for quite some time now. Thank you for being patient with us, Megan. What do you want to share?
Hey, yeah, I'm Megan, and I'm an organizer with Sunrise Movement Twin Cities, and to resist ICE in the Twin Cities and impact their operations. We've been bringing together groups of people outside of hotels where agents are staying to make noise and play music, often in the middle of the night. So we've made noise to beats, we've done sing-ins, and we've even held rock concerts outside of these hotels with another group, Climate Defiance. And these events are very cathartic for people, but they also work. They're truly having an impact on ICE. So it's this beautiful meld of bringing people together in music and resisting at the same time.
Yeah, Megan, I was going to ask you, it sounds like you don't see it purely as just making music or a form of protest. It's a little bit of both to you. Is that fair?
And it started purely as just a protest, but we would get these groups of people who would bring instruments, pots and pans, yes, and whistles, yes, but also tubas and accordions and trumpets and some flutes, just these people who have played music, but also people who haven't played in many years and are picking up these instruments to come out. So in seeing all these instruments together, I was really inspired early on to create music of the resistance and just have people drop a beat and play music to the beat. It's a bit of a cacophony, but people love to be in rhythm with one another, and it's connecting in that way, I think.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, I want to play some music that's popped up in the streets of Minneapolis throughout all of this. And this is, we've seen choirs, we've seen people playing brass instruments, the Solidarity Brass Band, for instance, drummers lining the streets. And I want to play a quick excerpt from a protest gathering with singing led by Singing Resistance. Let's listen.
Our love for each other will carry us through. Yes, it will. Yes, our love for each other will carry us through. One more of those. Yes, our love for each other will carry us through.
So, Shruti, I'm wondering, what do you think of all this music that's just been kind of popping up organically in the midst of fear and violence?
I really believe this is how we heal. The thing is, just like we have these amazing networks that have mobilized with groceries and all this aid, we've had a network of this kind of, I would call like musical communal activism in Minnesota for a while. The founders of Justice Choir are here in Minnesota. I think they started up after the 2016 election, something like that, and put together a songbook. So everything is there in place. And we're a pretty musical city, I would say, as well, in Minneapolis and the whole state. And people love to come together. But I think what Megan shared on the air about it's both, right? It's the combination of, it's really just how we commune with each other. If we chant at a protest together, that is music too. There's a rhythm, there's a connection to that. So of course it makes sense for people to tune their voices up and sing together as a way of healing and as a way of resisting.
Yeah. Joffrey, what about you? What do you think of all this music that's just sort of popped up?
Yeah, I love it. My wife was at one of those choir protests. I'm listening to see if I could hear her singing, but as she described it, that was a really powerful experience, and as has been spoken about, you don't need to be an amazing singer to sing with a group of people, and you certainly don't need to be, a musician to be moved by music. And I think the variety of songs that we're hearing are also speaking to the variety of ways in which protest songs and music can speak to a moment. There's not a song necessarily for people, though. I think like the Gil Scott-Herons of the world certainly have an abundance of songs that speak to people, or Bob Dylan. But I just think it's very cool, and the cacophony is great. It's like it's giving us a chance to embrace sort of the imperfections and sort of spontaneity of music, and that the perfection in it is that we're here together, not that we're doing some perfect piece of music. And I'm just enjoying Shruti's music, which I heard for the first time here tonight, because the human voice, it needs a little else to be powerful, and just like I love hearing songs that really just center that. It reminds me like some of the Sinead O'Connor songs that really just have that drone sort of behind it, some Irish music and Indian classical music and stuff where you just ground it in a single tone and let the voice sort of carry the emotion. So good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have Josh in Minneapolis on the line. Josh, what do you want to share?
Hey, I was lucky enough to be able to do a drumming protest on the Stone Arch Bridge on the 23rd during the first economic blackout.
Yeah. And what was that experience like for you? It was cold.
Yeah, it was really cold, but it was overall a really positive thing to do. It kindled, I think, for all of us a sense of community that felt like was being taken away from us. And the drumming community in the Twin Cities is really supportive of one another. I think in other places, it can be pretty competitive, but here, we all watch out for each other and lift each other up. And it was just great to be like, yeah, okay, we're all here, we're all together, we're all sort of fighting for the same thing, and we're making music together. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Josh. Gannon, I feel like we've had so many local musicians weigh in on this moment. And you mentioned a song earlier by Dury, and the song is called I Told You So. Dury is a brother and sister indie rock duo out of Minnesota. And they wrote a song shortly after President Trump was elected to his second term that's kind of gaining more traction in this moment. So let's hear a little bit of I Told You So.
When's it enough for us to give up on this stupid game we're playing? You say your lines and I'll say mine. We'll end up back where we started, stiff as board. We both hold the line, withered and worn till we're sharp as a knife. But this tug of war's always been one-sided. Someday you're gonna wake up to the future you created. I know that you'll never change, but I hope I'm there to say I told you so.
So Gannon, as I said, this song is getting a little bit of a second life right now. Is this one you've been playing? What's the response to this piece?
Yeah, it is. And I think what I love about that track and what it represents is that, like, you kind of get this full gamut of emotions that we're all feeling right now. And that one is just like this pure, unbridled, like, rage at, like, I've been telling you about this for years. Like you said, that song was written years ago. And it's sort of repurposing it now as like okay, how many times do I have to say this sort of way? I think it gets at like a certain catharsis that I think scratches an itch, just purely from like a emotional standpoint. It's in stark contrast to the songs that you two had played, like obviously instrumentally, but also like there's a sense of grief and a sense of longing for normalcy in these different tracks. And I think Austin Dury there getting at this, like, really just like, I need to get this out. I'm so frustrated that I even have to be singing this song. You can hear it in his voice. And that's what strikes me about that song.
Yeah. And, Gannon, you were not at the Morello Bruce Springsteen concert.
Oh, I
was
wish.
anyone at this concert?
Yeah.
Joffrey, Shruti, did anyone?
I wish also.
I was deep in the tickets queue when that news dropped. I'll tell you that much.
Well, it's because we all knew there was going to be a special guest too, and like, shame on me for not even thinking it could be Bruce Springsteen, but of course it was. And I'm just wondering, and I'm thinking also about the Bad Bunny halftime show the other day, which really threw some pretty strong hints at what's been happening here in Minneapolis too. Gannon, when these really big names start to weigh in on these very, local events that are getting national attention, like, what do you think that brings to the conversation?
Well, I think the word we keep coming back to in this conversation is like communal. It's like a very communal thing. And that's what I think is special about music that is explicitly political or protest oriented is like, I can hear a song, you know, I'm an anxious guy, and I can hear a song about being anxious and connect with that on a very one-to-one level. But there's something about when you hear a song about a societal ill that there's a community to it where it's like, I understand that this is not just my thing that I'm frustrated with. Everyone is frustrated with this. So as artists with bigger and bigger platforms speak out about it, and you know, Bad Bunny and Springsteen, like, that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's been impressive to see how many people have come forward about this. Like, it reaches more ears and it expands that sense of community, if that makes sense. And going back to like the different approaches, like that Bad Bunny halftime show, I was so moved by that one. I'm a huge sports fan, and I'm like a nut about the halftime shows over the years. And what I love about that show is it's almost like the other side of the coin to Kendrick Lamar's performance last year, in that they were both subtly political, but they both expressed an almost radical pride in one's own heritage, and did it in such different ways. You know, Kendrick is united against this sort of common enemy of folks, you know, maybe coming in and co-opting hip hop, in this case, Drake, as we were all watching at that show. In this Bad Bunny case, it's all coalescing around love. And there's like this united force of love. There's a marriage that happens on stage, and that being a radical act. Of course, there is like the overt political message. He's got the power lines there during the song El Apagón, which is a nod to the power grid issues that are happening in Puerto Rico. And I just, those two shows I wish could have ran as a double feature, because it's just wild to me how you can take two totally different musical styles and sort of come out with this subtly political message that just gives you a sense of gratification. I don't know. It moved me a lot.
Yeah. Well, we have Jody in Minneapolis on the line. Jody, what do you want to share?
Hi. Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to have music that scratches a very particular itch. So I like Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name of, or Ice Cube's Arrest the President. Because sometimes you
so
just
those
need
are the songs you've been
release a pressure valve.
Yeah. I'm really curious to hear from my guests what they have been listening to these days that they haven't written. Joffrey, I'll start with you. Like, what songs are you listening to sort of process all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of friends making music around the city, so I've been listening to their songs. I was listening to The Times They Are Changing on my way over here, and just sort of thinking about how, for me, Dylan's music is always sort of relevant and prescient of, you know, any time we're in. But I did want to note, you know, think about what Gannon was saying, and I think the other super important fact or outcome of bigger artists with larger platforms sort of speaking to these times is what we've all been saying, which is what you're seeing with your eyes is what's happening. And the bigger the artist is who says that, I think just gives credence to what we're seeing. When Bruce Springsteen will come to our city and speak to what he's seeing, I think it buoys people who are being second guessed by social media and who are being told to not believe what's happening in our city, and for people around the country to not believe what they're seeing on their screens. So just noting, I think that's a super important element when however subtle or direct Bad Bunny is permitted to be, I think we all know, you know, can infer what he's trying to say, which is to believe what people are telling you is happening, believe what you're seeing with your own eyes. So, anyway, that wasn't an answer to your question, but
no, but that was. I'm glad you followed up there. I'm glad. And Shruti, what about you? What are you listening to right now?
Yeah, well, actually, I just want to respond to what Joffrey just said, because in a way, you yourself, when you were describing your beautiful track, which I'm going to add to my listening rotation now, very, very powerful lyrics there. You talked about being the soundtrack for this moment. I think it's about bearing witness to this moment, and and the fact that you wrote this on the very day that Renee Good was killed, which I think was January 7th. You know, it's just there's a rawness to that, but there's a realness, and we need this in this moment. I mean, I think when we all know stories of, or actually know people who are too scared to leave home right now in our state. And that's what they want, right? They want that psychological isolation. And those people have to make the decisions that are best for them and that they feel safe doing. But when these big artists bear witness alongside us, it is that fact that we're not alone, and that the world is seeing this. If we don't speak up, that is how this will continue, right? We know this. And that's what they want us to live, not only in fear, but live in isolation. So that's why I just think talking about music in this way, sharing the music that we love is part of that communal connection. So even if you can't leave home right now, you can be tuning into what the Current is putting out and feel that you're connected to the rest of your community here in Minnesota. And then I guess on the soundtrack point, I think I've been going down a rabbit hole of Gil Scott-Heron, I think, with this, because there's a lot there with albums on Detroit. And there's people have talked about this before, right? That's the one thing. I mean, so a lot of this feels very shocking, like, oh my God, how could this happen here? But this is a cycle in history. This is a pattern, and there's just different ways that this is manifested. So artists have talked about this before. So I think we can turn to the wisdom of the past. I mean, I think for a fun listen, I add "We Didn't Start the Fire" to the rotation. I mean, a little bit, there's some fun in the rage, right?
Yeah.
I think like sort of
Gannon, okay.
I was just going to build on like that idea of bearing witness, because that's what like my reaction to the Springsteen song, which has sort of become a little bit of an anthem, that Streets of Minneapolis, like as someone who loves the boss, like hearing that, it was like, you know, my gut instinct that I hate saying this was like C+ song, like A+ gesture.
Sounded like Streets of Philadelphia to me.
like that was I was like, it's a little on the nose. And that was my thought going into it. And then I will say this, my heartstrings were completely won over. I was not at that show at First Avenue, but I was watching the live stream of it. And he introduced that song. Morello brings him onto the stage. Morello gives him the most thunderous introduction ever by saying the future of democracy will not be decided on social media. It will not be decided on television. It will not be decided by vote. It will be decided in the streets of Minneapolis. Full chills down the spine. And then Springsteen comes out and he talks about writing that track immediately after seeing the news of Alex Preddy's killing. And he said he actually sent the song over to Tom Morello, and he says, I don't know, I think this might be like a little on the nose. I think it might be not very subtle. And Morello goes, nuance is great, but sometimes you got to kick people in the teeth. And that is the line that Springsteen shares on stage. And I just remember like hearing that. That'll stick with me in the way I process protest music forever, because I have this like music fan urge to be like, no, it can be like a little bit more subtle, right? But you, like that's totally fair. Like in this moment, like there is like a documentarian element to that Springsteen track where like people can revisit that song in 25, 30 years, and it is a reasonable snapshot of what living in Minnesota has been like for the last several weeks. And I think that's that is a very valuable thing to have.
Yeah. We have Ray from Lansing, Michigan calling in. Ray, what do you want to share with us tonight?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, Catherine, you're doing a great job, and your teams are doing a great job. I watch you every night.
Thank you.
You have the journalists on, you have lawyers on, and just really impressed with the show. And I've been telling my friends here in Lansing, Michigan, to check you guys out. You're doing a great job giving us insight.
Love it.
But a song that really moves me is a labor song, which is called "Which Side Are You On?" I don't know if you guys had a chance to listen to that, but it's about the labor movement. But I think it sort of applies to what you guys are talking about tonight. But I do want to give a huge shout out to everybody there in the Twin Cities, and we're just really impressed with you guys. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to play another clip of another song that has come out recently. And this is a clip from Jesse Wells. He is not from Minnesota, but so much of his music is political. He's going to be here in a few weeks, too. This song is called Good versus Ice. Let's hear some of that.
I've had more dangerous encounters at gas station counters in the Walmart parking lot. But the smaller the man, the quicker the plan goes to somebody's getting shot. Kevlar and jeans, a mask and a gun, and a badge for everyone in the mob. You probably don't need to shoot someone in the face to do the thing that you're calling a job. How's work? Well, they got us shooting women now. How's the pay? Well, there's a bonus if you're one man. How's the hours? We shoot them in the daylight, and then we steal them away in the dark of the night. Only the best and the brightest, only the finest get to put on the sacred mask. If you ever been fired, congrats, you're hired for this particular task. Now they'll circle the wagons, drape the man in the flag, and say don't trust what your eyes can see. They'll say it's her fault instead for getting shot in the head when we all saw the same damn thing.
Gannon, tell me a little bit more about this song, and also just the role Jesse Wells plays in, this moment. He's processing a lot of things that are happening in current events for people through his music.
Yeah, he's sort of become, like, especially through the social media era, like this face for protest music because of how prolific he is. He puts out just a startling amount of music, like hundreds of songs a year. A lot of it is, just like a traditional studio album, but he's putting out these songs. That song there, you can hear the field noise of him playing it, in the middle of the woods, essentially, and he's just churning out these songs. And I think people are endeared by that rasp in his voice, that sort of like Southern drawl, that sort of like sincerity that comes across in his music because of how messy it is and how rough around the edges. And like I said, he's just prolific. He puts out songs all the time. And that one in particular was on a very quick turnaround. And I think that's like what's really moved me is like the immediacy of these songs that have come out. Like that great track, Joffrey, like that was the day of the shooting that you wrote that. That is just like, it's mind-boggling to me. And then that Jesse Wells song, Within Days, Springsteen, Within Days. I mean, it's so impressive to me how quick a turnaround. I can't wrap my head around it.
We have Chris in Minneapolis now on the line. Chris, what do you want to share?
For me, some of this has been about like a journey of getting back to myself and like, feeling this urgency and like I need to show up for every action, every protest, join every signal group I can in support of my kids' schools and donating, volunteering. And I guess like for me, there's this like settling into my sense of identity and wondering at my role in this moment, and then kind of returning to my skills as a songwriter. And I think that like there's this power in being able to use your particular skills and gifts in this moment. And I think like that speaks to a little bit of what like the multiplicity or the myriad of kind of voices that Gannon was kind of getting at with like the tension of the differences of the Super Bowl halftimes of the last 2 years. And things like that where, like, for me, I just have to simply, if the role of the artist is to just look at the world and tell people what you see, then, like, my voice is valuable. And I, like, just want to encourage more and more and more creation from all of the other artists out there.
Yeah. I'd love to hear from our musicians in the room what they think of that. Joffrey, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. I think I generally encourage people to just make music anyway. Often people are like, oh, I used to play guitar, I used to sing. And I'm like, you still sing and you still could play guitar. And it will serve you to do that. So I think if you're aspiring to write a song or you have a song in you for this moment, then write it. I think people.
Yeah. Shruti, what about
you?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think any of us are writing these songs in any calculated way beyond needing to add our voice to the moment, as Chris was saying. So, but if you have it in you, do it. I think, that's the.
Right. You're putting something out into the world, but also, I can hear in everyone's voices, you are getting something from it that's helping you through this moment as well. Shruti, what about you? What did Chris say that resonates with you?
Yes, absolutely. I love what Chris was talking about, like, what can we contribute in this moment? I think I know a lot of artists, I'm this way, who often think about, what is the best use of my time? How can I best serve my community? And there are moments where it feels like, is me, puzzling out this chord the best use of my time? Should I be on the ground doing something else? And I think Chris is speaking to something I feel, which is that I have spent a little less time on music at large this month. I have been doing more community-oriented action that has felt important to me. But for me, it was a catharsis to write this song, and it was about feeling better, slightly better. And this idea of feeling slightly better, singing with you, singing with someone. So there are times where we have to, consider the purpose and the utility of our work. I think these are important conversations to have. At the same time, if this makes you feel better, like Joffrey's saying, to pick up your guitar, even if it's been sitting in the corner, and all these folks who are coming out with their, brass instruments and drums, not all of them are actively performing all the time, but they're bringing them out for this moment. I think that speaks to like the immediacy of the connection you can build when you're communicating through music. So, do what feels good to you right now is what I would say. And for me and for so many, that's music.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to go next now to David in St. Paul. David, what do you want to share?
Well, first of all, thank you for taking the call and for doing a fascinating program. And I should say also, I've been telling my friends to tune into Public Radio News because you're just doing an amazing job these days, especially.
Thank you.
I'm with the Twin Cities Labor Chorus, which for 17 years has been singing at picnics and picket lines, also memorials and sometimes benefits. And we are, of course, very much supportive of immigrant rights. We've collaborated a little bit in the past with CETUL, CTUL, which I'm not going to try to pronounce Spanish and do a disservice, but it translates as the Center for Workers United in Struggle. And they've done marvelous work reclaiming over $6 million in stolen wages to workers, many of whom are undocumented, which makes it easier, to steal their wages. We've been singing songs by Raging Grannies. I want to put in a plug for Raging Grannies. You can Google them. They're in Tucson, they're in Madison, they're in Boston. They've been writing songs this month on immigrant rights. Tonight we were starting to work on Hit the Road Ice, which of course is Hit the Road Jack. And I heard earlier reference to Which Side Are You On? And I'm also a former historian, and I would just add there that was a song that was written in the mid-'30s by a coal miner's wife, but in the 60s it was rewritten for the civil rights movement to reference Sheriff Jim Clark in Selma. And there have been a lot of songs that have made these movements, especially people like Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger. We do some of their songs in the original versions, but also updates, of course.
Yeah.
And I want to
David, I'm
Woody
going to be
Guthrie's song. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I just feel like you're adding a lot of names to the mix here, all of which, most people have heard of before. And I'm just, I'm wondering, from a musical perspective, Joffrey, like, how do you feel like this moment is going to be reviewed historically as people are listening to music? We've talked a lot about, bearing witness to what's happening. 20 years down the line, how are people going to be listening to some of the music that's coming out of this, do you think?
I mean, sadly, I feel like the story is still unfolding, and some of it is going to depend on who gets to tell the history. But I think, nonetheless, broadening the lens beyond music, I think we often look at the arts that happen around inflection points in history. And so I think they'll be looking at the music that's being made right now, the theater and composing and dance and film. Presumably soon we'll see some films coming out. And I think it will be rich, regardless of outcome. I think it will be rich and hopefully honest and sort of raw. And I think speaking to, by the nature of so many different types of music, I think speaking to the variety of ways that people are experiencing this moment. But I really don't know. I'm hopeful that we are able to celebrate something when we look back on these times. But
Shruti, what about you? I mean, how do you feel like this is all going to be processed decades from now through music?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think Joffrey made an important point, which is that it's still going on. And as we mentioned at the beginning of this, I just flew in. I was gone for the week out west for some work. And I'm worried, actually, that people are starting to move on, that news cycles are starting to move on, which is why I really appreciate this special coverage that you're keeping going, because we had this moment where everyone in the national and international media kind of converged and came here. But just based on my experience of being away for a week and how much people were talking about it or not talking about it, I'm just worried that there's a complacency in the rest of the world starting to settle in, whereas folks on the ground here know that the situation has fundamentally not changed and there's still a lot of harm being done every day, every hour, to adults as well as kids. So I guess, if anything, I feel like we as Minnesotans and Minnesotan musicians, however you relate to the term musician, we need to make our voices louder in this moment so that they can't twist the narrative and say like, oh, we've fixed the problem, and continue to terrorize our home as they're doing. So that's my only fear, I guess, is that this is where we need to make our voices louder and continue to make noise and say, hey, this is still going on. We still need all hands on deck from the rest of the world. All hands are on deck in Minnesota for sure, but we need the rest of the world to continue to tune in.
Yeah. Gannon, what about you? I'm just curious. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, if anything, hopefully our art will carry to, unfortunately, the next city that's going to be a victim of sort of these misguided initiatives and the model of protest and the model of creating, music. I hope we'll travel right along with wherever this, unfortunate clown show, if I might say that, sort of goes next. But I share Shruti's concern that, we're conflating sort of a drawdown with things are okay now, and it's
that
wrapping
has
up.
not been your experience. Yeah. Gannon, we just have a little bit of time left here. I mean, I'd like to hear from you too, how this is all going to be viewed historically when, our kids and grandkids are going to be listening to this music years from now.
Yeah, I think Joffrey made a good point in that it depends on how the history is written. I think on a human level, I hope that this music isn't immediately relevant in 20 years. Because for me, the song that has moved me, and it's a shame I didn't bring this up earlier, the song that truly moved me to Waterworks in this entire thing. I remember driving down the 94, and I'm a big Bright Eyes fan, big indie rock guy, and their album I'm Wide Awake It's Morning celebrated an anniversary a couple weeks ago. So it's one of my favorite albums of all time. Naturally threw it on the way to work, and I was moved by a song called Landlocked Blues, which has the core lyric, "If you walk away, I'll walk away." And it's sort of this impasse of violence, of anti-war. And I was thinking it's stark how eerie this is 21 years later. So I hope that it's less relevant.
Well, thank you so much. Our time is up for tonight. I want to thank our guests. Gannon Hanevold is a host at The Current. Joffrey Laamar Wilson is a Minneapolis-based singer, songwriter, and composer, also known as Laamar. And Shruti Rajasekar is a composer as well. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll go out listening to Billy Bragg's City of Heroes.
I will bear witness to murder. I will bear witness to fascism.